Welcome back. It is power rankings time again. Teams 32 through 1, as usual. And this is the second to last Saturday night power rankings, which of course post Sunday morning because I want to make sure the review videos still get views. I found they didn't when I posted the power rankings right after the review was done and kind of felt like, well, I need to balance it out. Thus, the Sunday morning power rankings. But I will be doing a power rankings as well at the end of the regular season, which is on a Thursday. So there'll be a Thursday night power rankings, and that'll be it for the season. So next Saturday, there's a power rankings, and then the following Thursday at the end of the regular season. And then we're into the playoffs, where power rankings aren't important. Number 32 this week, same spot as last week, Chicago. I feel bad for Chicago. They're playing out the string. There are some really good young players coming up, though. Moore had a couple assists of assists their last game. And I think Korchinski looks better than he did last season in what limited action he's had so far since coming back up from Rockford. I think the future is pretty bright in Chicago. This summer, they may very well be a big player in the free agency that we're about to witness in July with the salary cap going up like it's going to. There's going to be some teams that are pretty aggressive, and Chicago may be one of those teams. So while this season is lost, next season's not. Number 31, same spot as last week, Boston. Coming into today, they were actually 32nd. I actually dropped them past Chicago. Then they got the win tonight, and I moved them back up to 31st. Now, when you win one game after 10 straight losses, I'm fine with moving up one spot. I'm not fine with moving up more than that, even if it is against Carolina. So Boston moves up to 31st, but in the end, they're in the same spot they were last week. So if you're watching this and you watched last week's, you'll be like, well, that's the same. Yeah, the teams move during the week, and then very often they end up back in the same spot. San Jose didn't move up or down this week. They're still number 30. So the San Jose Sharks are also playing out the string. There's some ugly losses in there, but they're not alone in that. This is after the trade deadline, and after the trade deadline, a lot of teams with iffy, mediocre records get a lot worse. So the separation we're seeing now between the haves and have-nots in the NHL is indicative of the fact the trade deadline's done, and a lot of teams that were below that playoff line just sold off, and their rosters are significantly worse than what they were before the trade deadline. Number 29, same spot as last week, Nashville. Nashville, they are a team that it will be interesting to see what happens with them this summer, because Barry Trotz has stated previously that, he feels like they might be able to rearm this summer and go for it again. Maybe. They were in the playoffs last year, so maybe they can find a way back in next year. But it's not going to be easy, and so Nashville, I think, is going to be... I think this summer is going to be fascinating, honestly. This summer, with the salary cap going up, I think it's going to be the best offseason we've had in 6 years. I'll say 6 years. And a lot of these teams down towards the bottom, a lot of them are probably going to have a lot of cap space. And so they could all of a sudden have a chance to make themselves a lot better in the offseason. Number 28, dropping one spot from last week, Philadelphia. The Flyers got that bump from the firing of John Tortorella. It didn't last that long. I'm not surprised that it didn't, to be honest. There are some good pieces there. Michkov's going to be a star for them. There's some other good pieces in Philadelphia as well, of course. Konechny, the guy the offense rotates around. But Philadelphia is definitely playing out the string at this point. They had a good effort against Montreal in points tonight, but I'm wearing a Montreal sweater and hat because Montreal had a pretty good week, and Philadelphia drops a spot because they didn't have a great week. Number 27, also dropping one spot from last week, Seattle. The Seattle Kraken, mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. No longer in the running at all. I think Philadelphia is eliminated as well. I was looking at the standings tonight, and they don't have an E next to Philadelphia, but from my math, I think they're out. So, yeah, the Seattle Kraken playing out the string. They got a win tonight against San Jose, but I can't move them up for beating San Jose, because it's just sort of, it's not really the way that works. Number 26, dropping 3 spots from last week, Anaheim. Still very bullish on the future for Anaheim, but they do drop back into the bottom row. This is the first time they've been in the bottom row for a bit, I do believe. The Anaheim Ducks, their future is just it's really bright. Some of these young players are going to be very difficult to stop next year, and they are definitely going to be one to watch for making some additions in the offseason. I also wonder, there's a lot of contracts we look at and we go, well, that's not a great contract. How many of these teams are going to be in line to pick up a contract that we may think is not great right now, but they have the cap space to add, and they could still add other players in the offseason? And sometimes a bad contract 2 years ago isn't bad now, and a great contract 2 years ago might look bad now. So these things do change. Number 25, and moving up 3 spots from last week, Buffalo. I'm frustrated too. The Buffalo Sabres, a team that I'd really hoped to see them play the way they are now. They're starting to play really well, and it's too late, which it feels like is sort of an MO for the Buffalo Sabres. Maybe they're trying to get above that magical NHL 500 so I can stand in front of a board when the season's done, talk about their season, go, well, at least they finished above NHL 500. I'm not going to say it, but I mean, honestly, it's been a long year for Buffalo, and it's just a shame to see that, like, now they're playing better, and it's too late. So that's your bottom row, the one that has the least amount of arguments about it. Not saying none, but the least amount. Number 24 this week, moving up 1 spot from last week, Pittsburgh. So the Penguins move up 1 spot. They did get the win today over Dallas, which I did mention in the review I was grateful for. I felt like Dallas had that 7-game winning streak coming into today. Impressive winning streak, but some of those wins on their own in isolation not as impressive. And it looked like they might get away with not playing a full 60 minutes against Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh did not allow it. So appreciative of that, and hopefully that snaps them out of that. But Pittsburgh moves themselves out of the bottom row this week. So they've had a decent run since the trade deadline, and I don't feel like they're going to commit to a rebuild this summer. I don't think they are. I think they're going to try to go for it again. But if I had a dime for every time that I have heard, it's an absolute shame Sidney Crosby isn't going to be in the playoffs. Half the league doesn't make the playoffs. It's what I like about the National Hockey League now. Half the league misses the playoffs. Making the playoffs is difficult. Speaking of which, at number 23 this week, dropping 2 spots, Columbus. A tough game for them tonight against Toronto, and they have these games where they kind of have their fates in their hands, and it slips. And tonight was another example of that, where if they came up with a really good effort, if they jumped on Toronto early and maybe got a goal or two and made them doubt themselves, but they didn't. And in the end, Toronto wins that game easily. And for Columbus, it definitely looks like the season is winding down to a disappointing close for them. It is a victory that they're playing games that matter in March and April. It is a shame they're losing the games in March and April, but most of March and now in April as well, that's been the case. Number 22, moving up 2 spots from last week, Detroit. They had a decent week. They did. And for the Detroit Red Wings, they haven't given up. They haven't decided that they're folding their tent and going home. They don't care about strength of schedule. If they got to beat the good teams, they got to beat the good teams. I was impressed they beat Carolina last night. We will see this upcoming week if they can make things a little more interesting in that chase for that final playoff spot, which this team here doesn't seem to have any interest in giving up at this point in time. Number 21, moving up 1 spot from last week, the New York Islanders. So the Islanders move up a single spot. There was the whole Duclair thing that happened this week. Duclair leaves the team. They won their game. Tomorrow morning, of course, they're hosting the Alexander Ovechkin show. Alex Ovechkin, he is going to pass Gretzky now that he's tied Gretzky. And it's a matter of whether it happens tomorrow or not. I think the next game after that's against Carolina. Considering how raucous that game against Carolina got earlier in the week, no idea what to expect if Ovechkin doesn't get goal 895 tomorrow, and if instead he gets it against Carolina in a game that might already be kind of ugly. But at any rate, the Islanders are the next team that's up in this traveling show of Ovechkin trying to pass Gretzky now that he's tied him. Number 20, dropping 1 spot from last week, Vancouver. They did get a win today over Anaheim, which was kind of fun. And honestly, they're a team, too, that it feels like their season is done, but they're not mathematically eliminated, so they're still going out and giving it an effort. For the Vancouver Canucks, I don't see them getting above the playoff line because I don't see Minnesota while they're weak. And we'll talk about Minnesota in a bit here. I don't think they're weak enough that Calgary and Vancouver will necessarily be able to pass them. That being said, though, dropping four spots from last week is Minnesota. The Wild have not looked like a team that's going to be dangerous come playoffs because everybody's hurt. A lot of injured players for the Minnesota Wild. The injury bug has not let go of them all season. Earlier in the season, Minnesota fans were like, hey, once we get healthy, and here we are, we're 2 weeks from the playoffs starting, 2 weeks from tonight, and Minnesota is no healthier, it seems, right now than they were a few weeks ago. And at what point do we start asking, so Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek, how healthy will they be come playoff time? The Minnesota Wild could be staring down a first-round matchup with the Jets if this keeps up. Yes, they could fall out of the playoffs. I don't think they will, but there is that possibility. I think they'll win enough games to stay above the line. Number 18, same spot as last week, the New York Rangers. The Rangers had an opportunity today, and they lost, so they've fallen 4 points off the pace now in that chase for the second wildcard spot in the East. And I don't know how to fix the Rangers. I'm sure that Shesterkin will take a lot of the blame because he's, their goaltender, and his numbers haven't been Igor-like this year. There's a lot of blame to go around. Coaching staff got called out today. I saw Shayna talking about the coaching staff. She's not wrong either. There's little things in their game that you can tell it's not the same as last year. I did see a comment on the channel too saying, aren't the Rangers almost the same team as last year? Yeah, that's what makes this weirder. It doesn't look like they're going to make it. And so then the next question becomes, do you just let go of that first-round draft pick? Because they have the option to say, you know what, it's going to be a top 12. We'll let a team have the number 12 draft pick. If you're concerned about next year's, which is not protected. So in the event the Rangers are really concerned about next year's unprotected draft pick, they do have the right to trade or to give up on this draft pick no matter where it is. They can do that. But anyways, we'll see how it all turns out. Number 17 this week, moving up 3 spots from last week, Utah. Utah Hockey Club got an impressive win tonight over the Winnipeg Jets, and they're still mathematically alive. They're not going to make it, but they're mathematically alive, and as long as you're mathematically alive, yeah, go for it. Utah is also a team, they're not worried about where they are in the draft lottery. They're a team that has a lot of good young players. They're not that far off, so draft lottery really doesn't concern them. And that rounds out row number 2 this evening. Or this morning for people who are watching this tomorrow morning. Number 16, same spot as last week, Calgary. Gutsy comeback tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights. They end up getting 1 point instead of 2. A lot of Flames fans, I'm sure, are going to be very upset with how all of that was decided and officiated. And, yeah, it is tough. And so for Calgary, I don't think they make it. Between Calgary and Vancouver, I do obviously think Calgary's playing better of the two of them. I don't think the math works great for them. I think they need to get... They do have one game against Minnesota, a head-to-head matchup. So that could help their chances. That's basically their season. If they lose in regulation in Minnesota, I think at that point you can just declare it done. Number 15, dropping 1 spot from last week, New Jersey. The Devils just dropped 1 spot, meaning they got past. I'm still kind of on the fence with New Jersey just a little bit. Now, they did get the win over the New York Rangers. Absolutely. They also got a win over Minnesota. Both teams that are down here. So New Jersey won over teams that I felt they should beat. So that's good news because that's been a problem for New Jersey in recent weeks. But yeah, they got passed. They got passed by a team that just looks pretty good right now. So if you're wondering why did New Jersey drop a spot, I'm wearing a sweater and a hat that'll tell you why they dropped that 1 spot. But there's a team that dropped 7 spots from last week. They're 14th this week. What is going on with Florida? They just look not like Florida. And I know, Kachuk's out, Barkov's out, Ekblad is still suspended. Those are some pretty big names. But the question then becomes, can Florida just turn it on come playoff time? Because right now it looks like they're going to finish 3rd in the division. They look like a 3rd-place team. And Toronto fans will be overjoyed if they win the Atlantic, because that avoids playing a Florida team in the first round. But if it's a battle of Florida, I think Tampa's the better team right now. The Florida Panthers just don't quite have it. Hopefully Barkov's back soon and he can get himself back up to speed. Hopefully Tkachuk isn't that far out. They're hoping he's good for the playoffs. Is it going to be like Stone? Like last year, everybody made this big deal about Mark Stone coming. Oh no, Mark Stone's back and this Vegas is cheating. Mark Stone looked awful in that first round. So when Tkachuk comes back, if he's good to go for the start of the playoffs, it doesn't mean he's going to be 100%. That to me sounds like, all right, we'll try it when it comes to playoffs. We won't risk it during the regular season. We'll try it come playoffs. I hope that's not the case. Number 13, moving up 4 spots from last week, Montreal. They are not the only team moving up 4 spots, but that is the biggest movement this week, at least in the up trajectory. The down, that's Florida dropping 7 spots. And now you see why why Florida dropped 7 spots, because Montreal beat them twice. And so Montreal moves up. They move up to 13th. And I've talked a lot about St. Louis and how I don't think that would be a team you necessarily want to face in the first round right now. I don't know if Montreal's a team you'd want to face either. These guys are having fun. They're loose. They're well coached. They're skilled. And they've got pretty good goaltending too. So I don't know if Montreal's a team that everybody's going to line up and want to face in that first round either. I think these playoffs are going to be fantastic. I'm just saying right now, I think this year's playoffs are going to be remarkable. Because I do think that there's very little difference between the top seeds and the bottom seeds in either conference. And that's great for us. Means really good hockey. Number 12, dropping 1 spot from last week, Ottawa. So Ottawa gets passed this week. But keep in mind that Ottawa right now, they are very close to clinching their first playoff spot in a long time. So the fact that Ottawa is still in the top half of the board tells you Ottawa's having a good year. And I really do hope we get the Battle of Ontario. I'm really rooting for a Toronto-Ottawa matchup. So I find myself cheering for Toronto and hoping that Tampa and Florida stay behind them so they can play against each other. And then we get Toronto and Ottawa in the first round. And I think that would be absolutely fantastic. So that's what I've got my fingers crossed for. We have not had a Battle of Ontario in the time this channel's existed. And I could absolutely do like a retrospective of their history going back to the early 2000s, late 90s. I believe they met late night. I think it was 99 the first time they met. Anyways, I know in the early 2000s they did, and it was something. Toronto manhandled Ottawa in the playoffs. Doesn't mean that's what's going to happen now, but it would make for an interesting video if that is in fact the setup. Maybe I could throw that into the preview portion of that series. I'm excited. I hope that's the setup. I hope that's what we get. Number 11, moving up 2 spots from last week, Edmonton. The Oilers losing in LA. It happens. Everybody loses in LA. So I'm not going to punish them for that. I think Edmonton's playing all right, considering no Draisaitl, considering no McDavid, no Stuart Skinner. I think the Oilers are playing well. And I think this is good experience for them. As long as McDavid and Draisaitl are both good to go for the playoffs, and as I mentioned with Tkachuk, I'll mention it with them as well, got to be 100%, got to be playing at full tilt in the playoffs. I think the Oilers may very well benefit from having this time without their top players, and maybe it makes them dangerous come playoff time. They did go all the way to the final last year, but they have not looked like the same team this year. Maybe this little stretch here, maybe that'll help get them back to that level. Number 10. Dropping 5 spots, 5 from last week, Vegas. Yeah, Vegas had a rough week. Now, they salvaged it at the end with the 3-2 overtime win over Calgary, which Flames fans will tell you just how legitimate they view that win tonight. I haven't even seen the comments, and I know just from how Flames fans reacted in the arena and just from what I saw during the game, I was like, yeah, they're not going to like that because no fan base would like these calls or the way this is being done tonight. But Vegas... They kind of held on by the skin of their teeth tonight, and they haven't looked great. They looked awful at points in that game against Winnipeg, and Vegas just... I even said out loud watching them against Calgary tonight, as I said to myself, I don't think this team is frightening going into the playoffs. They don't look like a true contender at this point in time. And what's interesting, too, is so you've got Vegas, Edmonton, Calgary, in this row, and there's nothing in the Pacific Division in the top 9. So Pacific Division is 10th at best on this board. We'll see if things change come playoff time. Number 9, and actually moving up 3 spots from last week. I hear you, Kings fans. I know. All right. The Kings are the highest Pacific Division team. See, I had to say that and then look down and go, oh, right, the next puck is still Pacific Division. The Kings look pretty well positioned, don't they? They look pretty well positioned, and I don't think they're scared of Vegas. I don't think they're worried about Edmonton as much this year as previous, for the reasons I mentioned with Edmonton. They're kind of a beat up, banged up team right now, and if LA has home ice advantage, LA's fantastic at home so far during the regular season. So, yeah, record-setting season and all that. LA's in good shape. So that's the highest the Pacific Division has. Top 8. There are no Pacific Division teams in there. Yeah, let's get into which teams from which division are in there. Number 8, moving up 2 spots from last week, Toronto. Yep, the Maple Leafs move into the top row. They are the number 1 team in their division. They are the number 2 ranked team on this power rankings in their division. And they're winning the games they need to. They're getting the points they need to. They may very well win the division. And maybe staying away from a Florida-based team will be good for them. And maybe they get to that second round. And maybe the Florida-based teams beat the you-know-what out of each other. And maybe that second round, maybe that gives a little bit of an edge to Toronto if there's a couple of guys who are out of the lineup for whichever team escapes that first round for Florida because of injury. And that series probably gets really physical really early. Toronto, maybe this is the year they go on a bit of a run. I'm pausing because there will be people who laugh. And then there's also going to be Leafs fans saying that I'm mocking them, and I'm not. Number 7, moving up 1 spot from last week, Carolina. They had a good start to the week. Not a great finish to the week. So they end up almost at the exact same spot and basically have passed Vegas. That's the only reason they moved up a spot. They'd actually moved up more than that. That game against Washington, they looked fantastic. Even amongst all the other fracas that took place in that game. Carolina looked really good. I was like, hey, they've really asserted themselves. These guys look fantastic. And then they lost to Detroit, and then they lost to Boston, and they end up almost down where they started the week. So there you go. They're at number 7. Number 6, dropping 4 spots from last week. It was a rough week for Washington. One question I was asked, and this was via a patron asked this question. And I answered this. They asked my wife. My wife asked me. I do think that the Ovechkin chase has become a bit of a distraction to the team. And I do think that it has affected their play over the last couple of weeks. Once Ovechkin has passed the Gretzky number, gets to 895 as soon as tomorrow morning, I expect Washington's play to get a lot better. I don't expect Ovechkin to score. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't score a goal the rest of the regular season, because I think the focus is going to be on getting this team playing its best from lines 1 through 4 going into the playoffs. So it's going to be, okay, Ovi got the record. Now we need to make sure we're ready for the playoffs. And I think we'll see their play improving. But right now, they are 6th. And the Washington Capitals have not looked great over the last little bit here. Number 5, also moving up 4 spots from last week. So, big mover here again is St. Louis. So St. Louis has gone from 20th to 5th in 3 weeks. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, early on in the season, like first 15 games, sure, that'll happen. You'll see a team go way up because that's what happens. But at this point in the season, this is virtually unheard of. So St. Louis, very dangerous team. 12-game winning streak takes them all the way from, they were here 3 weeks ago. Now they're up here. So I would not want to see my team play them in the first round. This is probably part of the reason why I'm fine with Dallas finishing second. Because in the event that Minnesota played well and maybe they jump past St. Louis, I'd rather not have, hey, look, we won the President's Trophy. Who's our first round opponent? The Blues. Well, it was a good run. Number 4 this week and moving up 2 spots from last week, Tampa. Kucherov is playing some of the best hockey he's played all season right now. Vasilevsky's put up ridiculous numbers for the last couple of months. Hedman's looked good. So while Tampa, they did lose today, and it was against Buffalo, but I didn't bust them down. I felt like they played well. And when a team is playing well and they lose that one game there, I will very often say, we'll see the next one. We'll see if this is a trend or if this is just a one-off. I don't think they play tomorrow. I'll look at the board to confirm. No, they don't play tomorrow. So they have a day off tomorrow. That's good. Get a little bit of a reset in there. They're still number 4. I think they're going to be really dangerous come playoff time. Number 3, moving up one spot from last week, Colorado. They almost did it. They ran out of time against St. Louis. I think if they'd had another 5 minutes in that game, they probably tie it and maybe win it. It was really difficult for St. Louis. They got by, they got it done, but good thing they got that empty netter, because otherwise that game would have gone to overtime, and I don't know if Colorado would have lost that one in overtime. I think they probably would have won it. The Avs are a good team, and that's a debate that's still out there about Colorado. I've seen some that are not convinced that the moves that were made were the right moves and that this team is going in the right direction. I think they are. I think that first round series, if it is between Dallas, the number 2 team that move up one spot, and Colorado, who are number 3, we may witness one of the best first rounds we've watched in a long, long time. The Dallas Stars, coming off a 7-game winning streak, they lost today against Pittsburgh. They have, over the last couple of weeks, on one occasion been first. They have at one point been first on the board, but not on a day that I record this. It's always funny to me because I do this on Saturday night and I stand in front of the board, but all week I track where teams are. All week I track who's where and I go over it in my brain. There was one time last week where I'm going by the board and I looked at it and I went, I can't justify that team being there, because I realized that team was playing poorly and I dropped them a couple of spots just walking by the board. So that happens where I just look at the board and I go, I can't just. And there's times where I'm getting set to do the board for all you fine people on the internet on a Saturday, and I look and I go, I think that team's in the wrong spot and I got to move them. But number 1 this week, it's Winnipeg. I don't know how many ways there are for me to describe what's going on with Winnipeg. So they lose tonight against Utah, but they also played their best game of the season against Vegas this week. In Vegas. Gave Vegas nothing. When Winnipeg is on and they're playing their game, I think they're easily the best team in the league. The challenge will be the playoffs. And I know Jets fans probably tired of hearing me talking about it, because every other person around media, blogs, everything, anything NHL related, we're all kind of seeing it the same way, which is Winnipeg's been good in the regular season before. And then the playoffs roll around and they don't look as good. They have to find their way over the hump, because I think this is the best setup this team's ever been to win a championship. And so this kind of has to be the year for Winnipeg. I've got my fingers crossed that it happens. It would be so amazing to see a Stanley Cup in Winnipeg. I would be very happy. This team has been number 1 in the power rankings a lot this season, and I couldn't justify dropping them to second, because I couldn't justify Dallas in first, or Colorado, or Tampa. St. Louis eventually might get there. St. Louis, if they keep doing what they've been doing, may end up number 1 by the end of the season, which would be bonkers, but they could end up there. So at any rate, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. And as I said at the start, I'll repeat it again here. There will be a Power Rankings next Saturday, and then there will be a final Power Rankings for the season after the final games are done on Thursday the following week. So this is the second to last that I'm recording on a Saturday night. Thank you guys for your support. I will talk to you again soon.